Hey gang, it's KR King of D&D Homebrew, continuing my series on the Rules Cyclopedia. This series is designed to get you up and running if you're interested in this system as quickly as possible. You know, one of the appeals of this system when I played it, which I haven't done in 27 years, so this has been kind of a relearning experience for me, but the appeal is the simplicity. The characters are much simpler than later systems. It's easy to get up and running. The combat system and stuff is much simpler and straightforward. On the other hand, there are things in these rules, the TSR and maybe older systems in general, where you read the whole rules and find these little nuggets in different paragraphs. They didn't necessarily organize this in a linear fashion. So you're going to want to read the entire rule system. But what I'm not going to go into is some of the optional things, although I'll tell you why as I cover them. But things like the immortals or the creating domains or the name character levels or the high-level spells, because the idea is you can just by yourself, or if you've got some friends that are interested in trying out the Rules Cyclopedia, roll up some first level characters, get into a dungeon and roll some combat, see what it's like to have treasure as experience, build these characters, the encumbrance rules if you choose to use them, but it's as simply and quickly as possible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over the character classes. Last time I rolled up a character, showed how the ability scores and adjustments and all that work. And I rolled up a dwarf, but I didn't really go over the classes per se. Now I'm going to go over the 7 main classes. I'm not going to go over the druid or mystic, the optional classes, but I'm going to go over these 7 basic ones. And once I've done that, I'm going to have a 5 character party. So I already have one, a dwarf. Just roll those up, see what I get. And obviously there'll be some that I'm going to miss out on because there's 7 character classes. But the idea is to have a typical size party, typical size in terms of the players that you can get. Then I'm going to go in a future video and go over the combat system. And I'm just going to run through sort of solo play, see what that's like in a sample dungeon. So if we go into the book here, chapter 2, which is character classes, as I said, there are 7. So the cleric class, the prime requisite is wisdom. As I mentioned, prime requisites are for experience bonuses. 1d6 hit die per level. You can use any armor plus shield, but of course no edged or pointed weapons. No swords, no arrows, whatnot. You're going to be using a mace. And then, of course, you belong to an order. You have spells. Here is the experience table. Now, the thing you notice about these systems, the experience values, what it required varies. The cleric is one of the faster, goes up the fastest at 1,500 and 3,000. We'll see fighters, magic users, elves, and dwarves, and halflings go up slower. Thieves are the only ones that go up faster. But notice they do not get a spell at first level, unlike the magic user. And the idea of the spells for the cleric are you meditate, you have access to all the spells of your level. You meditate each morning, and you take a spell. Reversible spells, you don't have to memorize the reverse, unlike magic users. But again, you don't get one at first level. The other really great ability of the clerics is the turning. Here is the turn chart. Basically how this works, you see first level, you can turn a skeleton, zombie, or ghoul. You must roll 2d6, and you must get that number or higher. Obviously, a ghoul is very difficult. Once you get that number to turn at these low levels, then you roll another 2d6 to see how many hit dice that you can turn. Basically, so let's say they give the example of zombies, which are 2 hit dice. You roll an 8. 4 zombies wander off. If there's any zombies left, they continue to attack. As you go up, you start to get a T, which means it's automatic turn. Just roll how many dice. D is automatic destroy. And then what happens is you get pluses and, number signs, which means your hit dice go up to destroy undead. And you look at the saving throws. It's kind of a midpoint saving throw. Not as good as dwarves or halflings, but better than magic users, elves, and fighters. What's interesting here, the death ray poison save, which is usually the easiest, is the most general save in the Rules Cyclopedia system. A lot of times, as you'll see, when you have to, avoid something or resist something or whatever, it often is that death ray. It's not necessarily spells, which is usually the most difficult. And here's the thing, after those 2 pages of describing, the prime requisite, what you can use, the turning of undead. We go into high-level name clerics. You go into land-owning or wandering clerics, right? Stuff you don't even have to worry about. It's really simple. Just a page or two on each of these character classes. So here is the fighter. As you can see, strength is the prime requisite where you get your experience bonus. Highest hit points, the fighter and the dwarf, 1d8. And you can use any armor, any weapons. You have some special abilities, lance attack and set for charge. Doesn't come up that often, but can come up. What you see is your leveling thing is is higher, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000. We had 15, 3,000 for the cleric. Takes a little bit longer. Other than that, you go down and basically you just special abilities. You have this lance attack and whatever, and then the higher experience, the name levels, where you can become a land-owning fighter, traveling fighter. And this is where the rules for paladin, which is a lawful traveling fighter, get 9th level, or you can become a knight, which is the neutral version of this, and then an avenger, which is the chaotic. As I mentioned before with the alignment system, chaotic's not necessarily evil, but that's where the evil characters go. As I said, we're not going to worry about that because we're just going to be starting this off. You can read those rules if your characters get up to the 9th level. Saving throws are a little worse than the clerics. Notice they have normal man in there. They go as fighters. You will see monsters when they hit our fighters or saving as fighters. This is kind of the standard table. And as I say, it's not, these things vary. This is kind of the beauty of these systems. Then we have magic users, higher again in experience, 2,500, 5,000, except 500. These go up much more slowly. Again, intelligence is your prime requisite. That's where you get your experience bonus. 1d4 hit dice. This is a thing for magic users and thieves. Always that low hit dice. Got to protect yourselves. And of course, magic users cannot use any kind of armor, no weapons, dagger only. Now, they do say in here optionally a staff. We would give magic users a staff because we thought of sort of Gandalf. So they did have that. But again, you're super vulnerable. Armor class 9, in this system, that's, you're vulnerable, right? In terms of the spells, you do start off at first level and 2 spells. Now, here's how you saw how clerics they're in an order, they pray every morning, and they have access to their full level. Not so with magic users. You got to write it down. You have a book. This book weighs 20 pounds, very bulky. A lot of encumbrance with carrying around this book for magic users and elves. And 2 spells to start. You can only use 1 per day, but here's the thing. The way they have it in the rules, you have a mentor, 7th level or higher magic user, but sort of taking you under their wing. And the way they say it is that mentor, the GM, decides which spells you know. And up till 4th level, they give you a spell, but they decide. Now, we did not do it this way because I did not, as a GM or any other, did not want to be picking your spells. We did not want to roll for it randomly because, a magic missile is a 1st level spell as opposed to a ventriloquism or analyze. A charm person, a sleep, a shield, a protection from evil. These are all very useful spells. A ventriloquism spell has its value in an analyze spell, but really, so we would let the players pick. Of course they're going to pick. When I roll up, if I roll up a magic user, I'm picking magic missile, sleep, charm person, protection evil, whatever. I'm going to pick a useful spell. Maybe that unbalances the system. Eventually, as you go along and you get more spells, or you get scrolls or whatever, and you can put a analyze on there or a ventriloquism, the player can write that in their spell book. But that was something that we homebrewed, and I think you might want to as well. So you look at the saving throws, the magic user, it varies in terms of some of them, they're better than the fighters. Some of them, they're more vulnerable. This is all the way these systems worked, whatever the math is behind them. So you do have separate charts for everybody. But as we'll see with THAC0, that goes across to hit. All the opening first level, everybody has the same THAC0 rating, and then fighters move up more quickly than magic users, thieves, and whatnot. And at higher experience levels, name levels, you have traveling, you have a wizard that has his tower, traveling the magi that wanders around, sort of Gandalf-esque. Not going to worry about that right now. All right, the thief is next. For me, a fun character to play because of all the stuff they do, especially in a dungeon environment, but they're very vulnerable. Again, 1d4 hit dice. So looking at their experience there, they go up the fastest, 1,200, 24, 48. They start to get some other abilities as well. They get an 80% chance at 4th level to read any language, any normal writing. And then they also get at 10th level a chance to cast some spells from scrolls. Again, very useful. The main thing, their saving throws are pretty good. Better than, I guess, equivalent to fighters. Again, you can look and see all the little variations they have in this. But obviously, they're special abilities, right? And this is the thing, if you don't know anything about D&D and you're just looking at this Rules Cyclopedia, you might be like, what is this? Why do I need to find traps? What are traps? Remove traps, right? Climbing walls. Well, again, this presupposes that you have some knowledge of D&D. This chart, famously or infamously, was modified from the originals, both BX and in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, to accommodate 36 levels. So we recognized this, there were all these weird little 1% change from one level to another. What was this about? Didn't have the BX system, so we went back to the AD&D book, which we bought, and just used that chart. And this just basically goes up 5%. There's some weird 4%, and then it goes 4%, and then finally, you'll look at these charts, what Gary was thinking on this. Gary is an interesting guy. If you look at climb walls, and you get down to the 11th level thief, you have a 99.1% chance. What does that mean? Well, you got to be 11th level. You've rolled, and you're trying to climb walls, and you rolled 100. So instead of falling and taking 1d6 per 10, you get a 10% 0.1 of roll again. Oh, maybe you didn't fall. And that goes up each level so that at 17th level, it's 99.7. In theory, if you were to allow people to go to 19th, you could literally have a 99.9% chance of making a roll, which, again, that's Gary Gygax. All right, so back to the Rules Cyclopedia. They give you some descriptions of these abilities, like move silently or hide in shadows. It moves silently if you're trying to go across dried leaves or something, or sticks, that's going to modify. Hide in shadows, you've got to be still, there have to be shadows, that sort of thing. Pickpocketing to try to steal things. Hearing noises, this is really important in the dungeon. Everybody has a chance to hear noises, but the thieves do better. Everyone has to be totally quiet and standing still, but they can listen at a door. This will reduce surprise if you hear that there's something in there, right? Picking locks and removing traps, very important in terms of you find a chest with treasure, which is what you're going for experience and to buy things. That thief can be really useful for that. And you also have the backstab ability. And basically, if the thief can sneak up behind an opponent unnoticed, +4 to hit, in addition to any other bonuses they might have. And if they do hit, they do double damage. Now, it's a little tricky here because if the attacker is, obviously hears or sees or is warned, it doesn't get the backstab. And if they're not in battle, it says, then you got to have a move silently check in order to sneak up behind someone, which presumes that if they're in battle, you don't need to move silently. There's just a chance they see you or something because you're not hiding in shadows necessarily. It's a little tricky. That's why you got to make that call. All right, then we have the dwarf, which is the character that I rolled up last time as a sample character. Strength is the prime requisite for experience, but now you have a category, Constitution. You must have a 9 or better, otherwise you can't be a dwarf. And these demi-human races have these characteristics, the elf and the halfling as well. They get some real ability. They also have level limitations, as I talked about, but they make up for that in some of their abilities. In terms of their combat options, again, 1d8 to hit dice, combat actions, the same thing, the lance attack and the set charge. Not used that often, but you do have that. A little bit higher experience, 2,200 as opposed to fighters, 2,000 per. And there's that cap at level 12. After that, you can continue to accumulate experience, but you just get additions to your hit bonus and whatnot. Here's the thing that I mentioned last time. Look at that saving throw chart. Very nice. This is, dwarves and halflings are just very resilient, very tough. Elves, not so much. They're nice characters. Dwarves also get infravision, very nice ability. You can see in the dark. Infravision, that's heat, right? I still sometimes with my 5th level group will say, oh, you're infravision. They're like, it's dark vision, right? Well, in the old days, it was infravision. Living things show red. Objects that are like blue. Now there is when you have a skeleton and a table, it says you can tell the difference between that. The skeleton has an outline, a lighter blue outline. Why that is, I'm not sure. You can't read with infravision. And the interesting thing is, you see a figure, You can't recognize who that is until you're 10 feet away, whether friend or foe, even someone you know. The dwarves can sometimes detect traps if they're created a stonework trap because they're very adept at stonework, creating passages. And of course, they have their sloping passages, detection ability, and sliding walls and new construction. And again, that's it. You just get name levels. That's pretty much it for the dwarf. So we go to the elf. Very powerful character. The prime requisites are strength and intelligence. They have a combination of those I talked about last time in terms of getting those experience bonuses. And you must have an intelligence of 9 or more. The thing that's nice here is you can use any kind of armor, any kind of weapon, and you get spells basically at the same rate as a magic user. It's very nice. And the special abilities are nice too. You get infravision just like the dwarf. You get extra languages. You get elf, gnoll, hobgoblin, and one more race. You can detect secret and hidden doors better than other characters. You have immunity to ghoul paralysis. That's nice. And ghouls can mess up a group. If we look at their progression, elves have the slowest progression of any character in the game, 4,000, 8,000, 16. And you look at their spells, same as a magic user, just that they have to stop at 10th level. They don't get any more. So that's when the magic user, when you start to go in 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, the magic user becomes very powerful. The saving throw table is a little better than magic users. Not as good as the dwarf, as we'll see the halfling, but sort of better than the fighter. Elves are nice. And then finally you have the halfling, which is basically a fighter class. But it has some modifications based on its size and its hardiness. It has -2 bonus to armor class when attacked by creatures larger. -2 is good, right? Because if you go over a 7, then it goes to a 5. +1 bonus to attack when using missile weapons. And you have a +1 bonus to initiative. That's very nice, The other thing is they're 1d6 for hit die. Now, they can wear any kind of armor or shield, but it has to be specially made. And this is a tricky thing, how you handle that, right? Even dwarf size, too big. They're very small, and they can only use small melee weapons. And they can use short bows and light crossbows only. They go up in experience, same level as a fighter, but caps out at 8, lowest of any of these. But again, they do get some additional abilities, the half damage from damage causing spells, the combat options, which we're not going to go into. They are, in addition, have this woodland ability where they can hide in the woods. 90% chance if they stay still, they can't be seen. That's really nice. Get down in the dungeon or where there's shadows, 33%. Very nice. And then we have the optional classes. I'm not going to go over those. The druid, you have to be a 9th level cleric to take this class. So we're not going to worry about that. The mystic, you need a 13 wisdom and 13 dex or better. They start off really weak. And then if you do live, they do get strong at the end. They get all sorts of abilities. But again, it's an optional class. I'm saying just start with the 7 main classes. All right, another thing that I'm not going to go over is the weapon mastery optional system for basically all characters get them. But fighters get 4 to start with at first level. And then it goes up another one at 3rd, another one at 6th. All other classes, that is human classes, start at 2. And then get 3, 4, 5, and 6. Demi-humans start off under this system at a basic. You all start at unskilled. So, for example, the fighter at first level gets 4 of these slots. He's unskilled, so you have to use 4 in separate weapons. Same thing with the other classes. So, since demi-humans are already at basic, they just go to the next levels at 4th, 8th, whatever. So, what this is basically is designed to help fighters have more power in the game. Go ahead and check it out. What you will find is, even though the system itself is fairly self-explanatory, the chart that is used to determine this, let me go down to this chart, sideways, right? Really, really complicated. This is a sideways chart, but it's just a lot of stuff to worry about. I just don't think it's worth worrying about at this stage of the game, when you're just trying to learn the game. The other thing are skills. Now, skills are something, this was, I think, from a Gazetteer magazine or something, first appearance of skills. And they are interesting, but like all of skill systems, there are some skills that are really useful. Healing, stealth, there's an initiative one, whatnot. Then there's some like dancing, labor, music, that are not so useful. And so, yes, you get a chance. The thing about the skill thing is, go check it out. I'm not going to use it for this. But what they talk about, when they show you the different abilities in these skills, what skills correlate to which characteristics. And basically, to do something, you roll a d20, and the idea is to roll equal to or under your characteristics. So if you try to do a dex check and you have a 12 dex, you need a 12 or under, right? If you have an 18 dex, 18 or under, and so on. If you have 3 dex, well, forget it, but you could try to do it. And that's the thing to me to think about when players are asking you, hey, can I jump over this thing, or can I stand as still as possible? Again, and I'm not a thief or whatever. Well, again, it might not be very easy to do that unless there's shadows or you're trying to be silent, but roll the dex or roll, whatever. I'm trying to convince someone of something, roll charisma. But you don't necessarily need the skill system, because what happens is people always take the same skills. Just like in 5th edition, 3rd or 4th, there's really good ones and there's really sucky ones. So we're not going to go over that right now. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I rolled up some characters. And what I did here, now remember, I said as a homebrewed rule, we used to say, if you roll 9 or less on a roll for these with 3 dice, it was a 9, right? Because we didn't want characters with a 3 intelligence that can barely speak, or 3 strength or 3 charisma. Everyone just can't stand them. It's sort of humorous at first and then not so great. But since I rolled that first character with just 3 dice, I decided to roll the other 4. And as you can see, the first character, 8 strength, I had 15 intelligence, 8 wisdom, 12 dex, 15 con, which is nice, and a 5 charisma. People are not going to like this guy, right? He's ugly. Here's the thing. You can also adjust attributes in the first 3. You can take away from the first 3, strength, intelligence, and wisdom, but you can only add them to the prime requisite of whatever class that you're doing. So for example, and you can't go, if you're 10 or below, you can't lower it lower than 9, which means you have to have at least an 11 in one of those to lower it. For every 2, you add 1 to your prime requisite. So in this first character, if I wanted to be a thief and I wanted to have a better prime requisite, I could have taken 6 off my intelligence, 9, added 3 to my dex, and have a 15. But I just thought, I want to have a magic user. I got 15 intelligence. That's a great prime requisite. And then I've got a great con because I got 1d4. So the very next character I did, again, look at these 10, 8, 10, then I had a 13 dex and a 14 con, that's +1, and then a 13 charisma. So I went for the thief anyway. Then I had the classic of rolling 3 dice, 10, 10, 11, 10, 10, 12. Joe average. I just decided we needed a cleric. I became a human cleric. They're always human. Then the final one was 14 intelligence, 16 con, it's +2. At 13 and 12, I had the characteristics. I like elves. I've already got a dwarf in the party. That's what I chose. Now, look down here at the bottom. These were you roll 3d6 for your gold, your starting gold. So the magic user 150, thief 150, cleric 120, and then the elf 60. This, because of the, you've got to buy your equipment, this makes a big difference. That elf can wear any armor, but can't afford to buy it, as we'll see. The other characters didn't. Now, the other thing about this is the encumbrance factor. How fast you want to move, and your encumbrance makes a difference in this, okay? So let's look at these characters that I rolled up. First, we have the magic user, okay? There's his characteristics. There are the adjustments. I made this person neutral. I sort of did this because they have the 5 charisma. Here's all their saving throws. Armor class of 9, can't wear any armor, doesn't have any dex bonus. I rolled a 4 on my hit points because I got a +1 on my con, which is great. And the THAC0 is the same as the dwarf. It's going to be the same for all these characters. Again, when you run into a monster, what's its armor class 4? You need a 15 to hit it. A magic user is not necessarily going to be striking, but if they were, that's what they would need. This movement rate is based on encumbrance. And what I wanted to do, 400 or below, you have the standard movement. All the characters have the same movement rate. You don't have dwarves and halflings or whatever slower. They all start off 120 is your normal movement rate, 120 per turn or 120 yards in the wilderness outside. Then your encounter is 40, and then running in any environment is 120 as well. That's per round, if you're running away from something, okay? So I want to have that movement as high as possible because I got a 9 armor class. What I do is to make sure my encumbrance is not above 400. So the spell book already weighs 20 pounds. That is a 200 encumbrance. Dagger, staff, I have a backpack, I have a 1 torch, I only took 1 week iron rations, very light, a water skin, tinderbox to light my 1 torch. Why did I take 1? Well, I figure the other characters are going to have torches. That's going to be lighting the way, the 30-foot radius. Maybe if I need to run away and I'm separated, I'll use my torch. That was the idea. So I still have 120 gold pieces left for my initial one. I didn't spend anything because the spell book, you get that. I picked Sleep and Shield. As I mentioned, the way it says in the book, they pick for you, but the Sleep is a very effective spell, and the Shield will help me for my armor class. One last thing on this magic user. Notice that 8 wisdom. That's a -1 saving throw versus spells. That's not going to be fun. Now, a little side note here on the torches. Eventually, you don't need torches because you have a continual light spell, magic user 2nd level spell, cleric is 3rd. There's people out there with continual light. You can throw them on an object. So you throw it on an amulet, or if you want to carry it, a coin or something. But amulet was what we traditionally used. You have it out, 30-foot radius. When you want to be dark, you just put it inside your cloak or whatever. You could buy those, right? And you can decide, first of all, you can decide, magic users wouldn't sell them. I don't know why, but how much do they cost? Is it 100 gold pieces, 500, 25, whatever it is, people are just going to buy these. But when you start off, you may not have enough to buy one of those in terms of the other. So I'm just using the torches. Then plus it's rules as written. But we just used continual light coins, and we didn't screw around with torches anymore. All right, here's Drago the Thief. -1 on his language learning. Dex is his primary, because 5%, always great. +1 on those missile attacks and armor class. That's awesome. Con is +1 per level, +1 reactions. It's a good character. Saving throws. He's got armor class 6. Why? Because he's got leather armor and his, which is a 7, but he's got that dex bonus. I rolled a 3, so he has 4 hit points, which was nice. The movement has gone down. Why? Because I have all this stuff. Remember, he had 120 gold pieces. I bought all sorts of stuff. 50 foot of rope, spikes, hammer, torches. Because once you go over 400, which he's going to go probably with the leather armor, the sword, the backpack, and rations, right? You're going to go over that. So I just thought, well, if I'm going to buy all this stuff. A mirror, a grappling hook, right? And then here are basically my chances to do my various special skills based on the AD&D. And I had 1 gold piece left. All right, here's Xena. She's an elf. This is my super boring, all +0s, lawful, no bonuses on adjustment. There's the saving throws. Armor class 1, the movement has been reduced, 5 hit points. Xena had 120 gold to spend. Standard stuff, a mace to fight with, plate mail to get that armor class down, and a shield, that goes to 1. Torches, backpack, 1 week, iron rations, right at 800. You go 801, you go down from this, okay? So I wanted that movement to be there. Here are my turning capabilities at 1st level. I can take any spell I want from the chart, so I don't have to write that down. Obviously, as I'm running every day, I'm going to be writing down it, but it's not like I have to know a spell. All right, so here is Rena. She is a lawful elf. Here are characteristics. Got +1 language, +1 on saving throws versus spells. That's nice. And then a +2 on con. Really nice in this system. Strength and intelligence. The 10 strength doesn't give, so she basically gets the 5%. You need both to get the 10%. Here's, again, the saves are not the greatest saves, not the worst. She's got an armor class 6. You'll see why, even though she can use any armor. 6 hit points. Rolled a 4 on a 6-sided dice, so you have +2. Same THAC0 as everyone else. So here's the situation that you have with an elf, is that, first of all, she had 60 gold pieces, so she couldn't buy a lot of stuff. And she's got a spell book that weighs 20 pounds. That's a 200 encumbrance. So already you're trying to stay below 800 so that you're not slowing the group down. Because if one person goes below that threshold, the whole group goes that slowly. And then if you're trying to evade, you're going to fall behind. Well, what that means is can't buy like plate mail or something because it's going to have too much encumbrance on me. And also, I don't have enough money anyway. And what would happen in a real game was maybe people would lend you the money. Hey, I only have 60 gold, and you've got a magic user who has 120 extra. Could you just give me some? But you're going to get slowed down because you're carrying around that bulky book. Something to think about. Again, the abilities, infravision, detect secret doors, immunity. I picked magic missile, charm person. The other character picked sleep and shield. We're going to see how that works because we're going to run these characters in a group. So there you have it. I got 5 characters that are ready to play. What I'm going to talk about next time is a little bit about movement, a little bit about evasion when you have encounters. And then I want to get in there and I want to just go into a dungeon room, meet something, a solo play. So I'm just going to randomly roll a monster on the chart. And we're going to see what it's like to fight these things. And then get the treasure, and then run a couple, see how long, again, because as you run out of spells, you take damage, whatever, just like the game of D&D, and see what it's like to play the Rules Cyclopedia. So if you like what you've seen, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always looking for more. Leave some comments. I'd love to hear about more people. I've gotten some comments already, people playing the BX system or Rules Cyclopedia. And of course, keep playing some version of D&D, the game we all love. Tell somebody else about it.